Good morning, classmate. My name is Felix Albinco, BIS BA3 major in marketing. So, my report is about brief history and purpose. The World Trade Organization or WTO developed as result of the Uruguay round of GATT. So, ang the World Trade Organization is ito yung agency na deals with the global rules of trade between nations, and the main function is to ensure that trade flows as smoothly. So, ang ginagawa ng W Trade Organization is ito yung pandaigdigang patakaran ng kalakalan pagitan sa mga bansa. So, ang pangunahing tungkulin nito ay matiyak na dumadaloy ng maayos ang kalakalan ng mga bawat bansa. Formed officially on January 1, 1995, the concept of the WTO had been development for several years. When the WTO replaced GATT or GATT, it absorbed all of GATT standing agreements. So, ang GATT is ito yung General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades. So, ginagawa nito is a legal agreement between many countries whose overall purpose was to promote international trade by reducing or eliminating trade barriers such as tariffs or quotas. So, ang ginagawa pala ng GATT is ito yung pandaigdigang agreement between sa mga iba't ibang bansa. Ang ginagawa nito ay nililesen or pinapakunti or winawala ang trade barriers or hadlang such as yung tariffs or yung quota. It contrasts to GATT, which was a series of agreements explained on its website. The WTO is the only global international organization dealing with the rules of trade between nations. At its heart are the two WTO agreements negotiated and signed by the bulk of the world's trading nations and ratified in their parliaments. The goal is to help producer of goods, services, exporters, importers, and conduct their business. So, ang goal pala ng WTO is matulungan ang mga producers sa yung goods nila, yung produkto, yung serbisyo, sa exporters, lalo na importers, to conduct ang kanilang negosyo, para i-conduct ang kanilang negosyo. The global focus on multilateral trade agreements and cooperation has expanded trade exponentially. The past 50 years have been exceptional growth in world trade. Merchandise exports grew on average by 6% annually. Total trade in 2000 was 22 times the level of 1950. GATT and the WTO have helped to create a strong and prosperous trading system contributing unprecedented growth. So, nandito yung multilateral trading system, past, present, future, World Trade Organization, December 2010. So, this is the link. So, panoorin na lang natin yung link. Dito natin makikita yung ibig sabihin ng WTO, then yung GATT. So, open ko muna. So, ito nga, World Trade Organization. Ito yung sample niya. In brief, the World Trade, tulad ng sinabi kanina, is the only international organization dealing with the global rules trade. Its main function is to trade as smoothly and freely as possible. So, yun nga, main function niya is masiguro na ang trade ay yung kalakaran ay maayos sa bawat bansa at malaya as possible. So, ito yung example ng malayang kalakaran na mga container vans from one country to another country, hinahatid yan ng barko para makipagkalakaran. So, ito yung mga kumbaga mga negosyante or such as ito yung tinatawag na mga heads ng mga company. So, nandito yung mga director general, chairman, chairperson. So, trade negotiation. The word came into being in 1995, one of the youngest of the international organization. The WTO is the successor to the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, established in the wake of the Second World War. So, napakatagal na pala ito na-establish nung World War pa. So, while the WTO is relatively young, the multilateral lateral trading system that was originally set under the GATT is over 70 years old. So, balik na tayo dun sa ano natin. Balik ko lang. So, pagpatuloy natin, the WTO's primary purpose is to serve as negotiating forum for member nation to dispute, discuss, and debate trade-related matters. More than just a series of trade agreements, as it was under JATT, the WTO undertakes discussion on issues related to globalization, its impact on people and the environment, as well as trade-specific matters. It doesn't necessarily establish formal agreements in all these areas but does provide a forum to discuss how global trades impact other aspects of the world. So, ang headquarters ng WTO is in Geneva, Switzerland. The current round is called the Doha Round and began in 2001. So, nagsimula sila noong 2001 with 153 member nations. So, the WTO is the largest global trade organizations. 13 nations have observer status, and many of these are seeking membership with so many members nation. And the concept of MFN has been eased into a new principle of normal trade relations. Advocate says that no nation really has a favored nation status, rather all interact with each other as normal part of global trade. The biggest change from JATT to the WTO is the provision for the settlement of disputes. If a country finds another country trade practice unfair or discriminatory, it brings the charge to the WTO, which will hear from both countries and mediate a solution. The WTO has also undertaken the effort to focus on services rather than just goods, resulting from the Uruguay round. The General Agreement on Trade and Services, or sinabing GATS, seeks to reduce the barriers to trade and services following the GATT commitment to non-discrimination. GATT requires members nations to treat foreign service companies as they would domestic ones. For example, if a country requires a bank to maintain 10% of deposit as reserves, then this percentage should be the same for foreign domestic banks. Services have proven to be more complex to both define and regulate, and the member nations in continuing the discussion. Similar to GATS is the WTO Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects or Intellectual Property Rights, or tinatawag natin na TRIPS. TRIPS. So, ang TRIPS ay is an international legal agreement between all the member nations of the World Trade Organization. TRIPS is also specifies enforcement procedures, remedies, and dispute resolution procedures. So, similar TRIPS intellectual property refers to just about anything that a person or entity creates with the mind. It includes inventions, music and art, writing, as well as words, phrases, sayings, graphics, to name a few. The basic premise of intellectual property rights, or IPR law, is that the creator of the property has the right to financially benefit from his on her creation. This is particularly important for protecting the development for the creation, such as the research and development or cost Companies can also own the intellectual property that their employees generate. The section focuses on the protection that countries agree to give to intellectual property created in another country. Over the past few decades, so sa mga nakalipas daw na mga ilang dekada, ang kumpanya ay had become increasingly diligent in protecting their intellectual property and pursuing abusers. So, sa mga nakalipas daw ng mga dekada, ang kumpanya ay nagkaroon na sila na magkaroon ng masipag para protektahan ang kanilang pangkaisipan, na ari-arian at tuloy na mga abusado. Whether it the knock-off designer handbag from China that lands on the sidewalk of New York, or the writer protecting her thoughts in the written words of a book, commonly understood as content of the global software company combating piracy of its technical know-how. IPR is now formally a part of the WTO agreements and ongoing dialogue. So, ang ibig sabihin pala ng IPR is, ito yung intellectual property is a category of property that includes intangible creations of the human intellect. There are many types of intellectual property. In some countries recognized more than others. The most well-known types of copyrights is trademarks and trade secrets. So that's all my report. Thank you.